Yep, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. Should we get started, Heather?
Sure.
Okay. Hi and welcome. My name is Mandy Goodsett, and I'm at Cleveland State University, so your neighbor over in Ohio. And I'm really grateful that MiALA gave me the opportunity to present my session that was supposed to be for this year's MiALA conference as a webinar instead. So I think it's kind of fun because I can see some of my Ohio friends and others are able to make it, so we all can benefit from it. So I'm going to share my screen, but while I do that, I thought it might be helpful in the chat if you're comfortable, since this is a live session, it's kind of nice to take advantage. I'm going to be talking about open education and affordability initiatives, and so I'm curious where all of you are at. Do you have an affordability initiative on your campus? And if so, would you say it's kind of an early program, very new, or developing, or like a mature program that's pretty far along? So while I do that, feel free to share in the chat if you're comfortable how far along you are on your campus when it comes to open education or affordability. All right, let me. Of course, now I can't see the chat. Let me open the chat up here. All right, it's thinking about it. So while this opens, I'll just talk a little bit more about myself. I am Performing Arts and Humanities Librarian at Cleveland State, as well as our OER and Copyright Advisor. And I'm also involved with the Open Textbook Network, which is changing its name to the Open Education Network, which is really messing with me. But I'm an instructor for their OER librarianship certification course, and so if you have questions about that later, I'm happy to answer those. And I'm also involved as a presenter for their program where they visit campuses and teach the OTN way, or the OEN way, as I'm going to have to think of it now. And then I'm also involved at the state level. Ohio Link is our state consortium, and they have some efforts that they're doing, and I've been involved with that for a few years now. So I'm trying to look at the chat, but it is really not, it's really not wanting to show it to me here. Oh, now it's finally showing it. Sorry. I just want to see what people are saying. Don't have one yet, but desperately trying. Hi, Mina. Early, small, disparate initiatives. Also don't have one, but trying. Early, well-connected. Okay, and Ursuline College still in early stages. So it sounds like actually most folks are pretty early along. So that, I think that'll help that we're all, that everyone's kind of in the same place. So what I'm going to talk about today is on our campus, how we try to grow our initiative through the use of gratitude. And I think this may be especially timely because a gratitude campaign is a great approach if you don't have any money to have a whole bunch of grants and things like that to grow your initiative. It's about using positive thinking and highlighting your faculty champions to make a lot of progress. So all of my slides are openly licensed, and at the end I'll have a link to both the slides and a folder with a few things that you can use if you'd like on your own campus. So just a little bit about my campus. So I'm at Cleveland State University, which is in downtown Cleveland, Ohio. You can kind of see Lake Erie there. And We have about 17,000 students. A lot of our students come from the surrounding area, so the Cleveland neighborhoods. So we have a lot of first-generation students. We also have a lot of non-traditional students who are coming back after a long break, and we have pretty robust graduate programs. And then we also have, hopefully into the future, a lot of international students as well. So when I am on campus like normal, I'm seeing a lot of diversity, and it's just a wonderful environment to be in, lots going on. And but at the same time, we have a lot of students who, for various reasons, textbook costs are quite a burden for them. Either they aren't prepared for it, they don't know that they're going to have to um, budget for textbook costs, or it's just simply not possible for them to budget for that, or it's a big burden for them. So we've been thinking about this for a long time now, about how to deal with that problem. And we got started in 2014. Our library director at the time, Glenda Thornton, who is wonderful, she did a great job kind of laying the foundation for us. She got us involved way back in 2014. And then in 2016, we kind of made it more official, and we started our Affordable Learning at CSU initiative at that time. And here are just a few things that we do. We have an OER committee, and if anyone's interested, it sounds like there are a lot of people who are just getting going. We had to like develop a committee charge and choose all of our committee members and all of that stuff. And I'm happy to share any of that material so that you don't have to start from scratch. But our committee includes folks from all over campus, including 2 appointed faculty members and a representative from student government. We also offer textbook affordability grants every fall and spring. They're not very big. We have a pretty tiny one for adopting an open textbook, and then a larger one for adapting or actually creating an open textbook or other OER. And then we also offer a Textbook Hero Award. So our student government actually established this award, and they choose the winner every year, which is really cool. We help with some of the keeping it consistent from year to year as SGA students change. But it's really positive, and that's another one. It doesn't cost anything except the cost of a plaque, but it can be really helpful for faculty who are looking for ways of demonstrating their teaching in their promotion and tenure dossier. So that's been successful. Last fall, we had a speaker from OpenStax come to our campus, and I think that's another common method of kind of getting excitement going and building momentum, is having someone who is not you come to your campus and say the exact same thing that you've been saying. It can really move things forward. And every fall and spring, we also have open education workshops for faculty. And then I'm just breezing through these really quickly because this is not the focus. But we, in August, we're going to be offering a new thing, a textbook affordability summer symposium that is basically a little bit of training through our learning management system. And then at the end, the faculty member has to review an OER, an open educational resource, and then commit to at least adopting one as an optional resource for students, even if it's not a required resource. And they get $600 for participating in that, which is amazing. The provost is funding this at a time when money is really hard to come by. So we are very grateful for that. So these are things that we've done, and we're really, as I said, we're really fortunate in what we're able to do. We have support, obviously, in the library, but we also have support at our administrative level. Our provost actually, at his previous institution, wrote an open textbook, so he is all on board for helping us out. But like other campuses, you get started and you find the early adopters, and they are always willing to do whatever, and so it's really great. But then after a while, that's kind of who all you're getting is just the same folks. They're like reapplying for grants, and it's kind of always their faces that are featured. And so we really wanted to reach some new folks. And we were also facing the fact that we didn't have any additional funding. So while we weren't getting a lot of new interest, we couldn't rely on money to increase interest. So that's when we decided to try a different strategy. I also thought I would mention some of the challenges that we've been facing, our faculty are facing, which I think may look familiar to you, that kind of prevents them from getting on board with our initiative. So they don't know about open textbooks, I think, is a common thing. And sometimes I'm surprised because I'm thinking about it all the time, but a lot of them have no clue what an open textbook is, or even worse, they think they know what it is, but they don't, and they have some misperceptions about it. That can be really problematic. Another problem that's perfectly legitimate is there just are no open textbooks or other OERs that meet their needs for their class, and that's just a really challenging thing. And then, of course, especially right now, switching to an open resource does take time. Switching to any alternative resource takes time. And of course, some faculty then really want to change the resource, and that takes even more time. And that can be a real burden for faculty who are already really stressed out and overburdened. They may also perceive that they have to do it themselves, that they have to just, figure it out on their own, and that can be a deterrent for them. We were hearing from our faculty that they were worried they weren't getting credit in the tenure and promotion process for doing all this extra work during this precious time when they need to be doing activities that will help them get tenured. So they were worried about that and how could they get some credit for the work they're doing. And then finally, I think for our faculty who are really, really not early adopters, I think they were kind of waiting for this all to go away. They just thought, well, it's like a fad and it'll be gone and then I won't have to worry about it anymore. So there's not much we can do besides what we were already doing about those first 4 challenges, but we thought we could maybe tackle these last 3. So can we change that misperception about lack of support? Can we give some support for the promotion and tenure process? And can we communicate this is not a passing fad, this is actually a part of our university culture, that we value teaching, that we value student success, and this is a really important part of that. So we thought we would rely on psychology, the psychology of public gratitude, as a foundation for our efforts. And here are some of the things that I found when I was looking into this that became useful to us. So what we want to do is change faculty members' attitude, especially those who are like, this is a fad, I just want to wait for it to go away. So for those folks, we really want to change their attitude, but it turns out it's really difficult to change someone's attitude, and it's actually sometimes easier to change their behavior. And because people want to be consistent, their attitude often will follow. So, sometimes we're thinking about how can we let faculty know that their behavior is already in line with our initiative, because then they will be more likely to say, oh, of course, I'm a part of your initiative, I support it, and I want to be a part of it. Another thing that this may sound familiar to you, it's used by marketing folks, is the foot in the door technique. So this is kind of what, Netflix and Hulu use when they say, oh, you can try our product for a little while, but then you have to buy it. So the idea is if you make a small ask, do this small thing, it's easier to get someone to do the larger thing. And OTN uses this, their strategies to ask faculty to review an open textbook. That's not a huge ask, and they give them a small amount of money to do that. And then usually about 40% of the time, the faculty member chooses to adopt that textbook. That's a much bigger process, but they're more willing to do it because they've made that small step and it was successful. This is kind of the big one for our initiative, is the idea of social proof. So if we see our peers doing things that have result in positive outcomes, then we are more likely to want to do that. And especially if it's peers that we respect and we want to be like, we like to have a positive self-image. And so when we see others and we think that is how I want to be, those are the outcomes I want, then we think, of course, I can be that way as well. And it changes our behavior. And then finally, we really like emotions that are certain and positive. We don't like uncertainty and we don't like negative emotions. It seems kind of obvious, but it creates some problems. Like it's hard for us to think about long-term implications of things and things that make us feel bad. Like, I think this is an issue with like climate change. We don't like thinking way in the future, and we don't really like thinking about all the bad things, so it makes it difficult to take action. So the same is true here. Faculty are more likely to respond and react if we come to them with positive messaging and a certain pathway to success than if we come to them and we talk to them about, we kind of guilt trip them and make them feel bad about the costs that they're burdening students with. That often doesn't go over as well. So that's where we built our gratitude campaign, and this all happened in late fall and then right up until days before we were all sent home in spring of this year. And we wanted our campaign to have three kind of guiding tracks. We wanted it to be public, so we wanted to take advantage of social proof. So we wanted a lot of people's peers to see what we were doing. We wanted it to be positive, so as I said, focusing on positive emotions and not so much on negative. And then we wanted to be inclusive, so we wanted folks who didn't usually consider themselves part of our campaign to kind of be looped in and suddenly see themselves as part of our group and our goals. Okay, so the first thing that we did was we started building an affordability advocates list. And this isn't too hard to do. It just takes some time. So essentially, anytime we heard about a faculty member who was doing anything related to affordability, let's say they don't use a textbook, or they only used a library licensed e-resource for their textbook or a collection of them. They use public domain materials, or they allow their students to use an older edition of their textbook because it's cheaper. So all these different things that our faculty are doing, as we heard about them, we would add them to a list, and our list is it's over 60 people now. So it can become quite a long list, and it's not going to just be people who necessarily, won one of your awards or got one of your grants. We want to be very inclusive and include people who are thinking about affordability when they choose their materials. That was our first step. Then we started looking at how we could deal with the promotion and tenure issue. And one thing we had seen other campuses do was have an administrator write a thank you letter to faculty who are doing affordability kind of efforts and sign it and say, thank you for what you are doing. We value this on our campus. And so University of Alaska Southeast had a template that they openly licensed and they sent to me when I put out a call. And so we modified that, and our provost agreed to sign a letter like this for all of our grant winners so that they could put it into their promotion and tenure dossier, which is really appreciated. This template is in the folder that I'm going to share with you at the end, so you can feel free to modify it and use it yourself. And it doesn't need to be from the provost. There may be someone else, administrator on your campus, who is willing to write a letter like this, or if you're willing to write it, they'd be willing to sign it. And it's a really low-cost, easy way to demonstrate support. Another thing we wanted to do was involve students, and this idea came from Nicole Finkbeiner, the OpenStax representative who came to our campus, she talked about positive messaging from students and how important that is. And so we decided to make some thank you cards, but they turned into thank you posters. And we wanted to have sincere thank yous from students. And one challenge was a lot of our students, and I don't know if you experienced this, a lot of them don't really know what open textbooks are. So just going out and asking them to like thank their professor seemed kind of like they wouldn't necessarily know what we were talking about. So instead, we approached our Student Government Association, and I had already presented to them several times. And so they knew what I was talking about. And I said, would you be willing to sign these big thank you posters on behalf of all the CSU students, thanking affordability advocates for thinking about textbook costs? And they said, yes, we'd love to. And you can see that they had some really wonderful messages. I love you for this. Thank you so much. It is very helpful. Thank you for being so considering and understanding. You rock. And there's another one. Thank you for using a free book. My pockets appreciate it. Heart means a lot since money is always tight. We appreciate you. Spread the word to your colleagues. So really great messages. And, you know, obviously having these print things is less helpful now that we're all at home, but we absolutely can use this for a lot, and we already have used them for a lot of things. We can put them in the background of photos. We can bring them to events. We can post them on social media. They're just really useful to have. And I have some ideas of things you could do instead of having a printed out poster that I will share with you at the end. I have lots of ideas of how to modify all of these things based on our new reality of everyone being virtual all the time. But this was a really fun project for us to do. Another thing we did was we created these little door hangers that just said thank you for being an affordability advocate. And door hangers are pretty inexpensive. You can just buy a bunch of blank ones, and then if you have a color printer, you can just print on them. And this is another thing that's in that folder I'll share with you, the design for this. You are welcome to modify it and use it however you want. But yeah, this was really easy. We had that big list of affordability advocates. Every single one of those people, we went to their office and we put a hanger on their door during Open Education Week. And this is something that, you know, folks who are walking around, faculty visiting their office, they will see these door hangers and it may pique their interest. And it also is a signal, you know, they're going to see a lot of these. I think we reached 26 different departments or something. So they're going to be seeing these everywhere. And I think that's a signal to them. This is not just a passing fad. This is something that a lot of my peers care about. And so I should probably look into it as well. And then this was our last kind of big part of the gratitude campaign. One of our staff who does the marketing for our library, Tracy Kemp, and Donna Stewart is also our web person. They did an amazing job designing a lot of these things, but Tracy actually got an idea because our sports folks on campus were raffling off season tickets, I think, to our basketball games to CSU staff and faculty. And instead of just posting, hey, so-and-so won season tickets, they actually took the tickets to that person's office, and then they took a picture of that person being very happy and getting their season tickets. And she thought, well, that was really cool. Can we do something like that? So she actually concocted these swag bags of library swag. We had things on hand. It was nothing that fancy or expensive. And then we also created some flyers for upcoming open education related events. And we put all that stuff in the bag. And then all of our grant winners, we said, we have a free swag bag for you. Would you please stop by and pick it up? And we will take a picture with you, if you don't mind, while you receive your bag. Initially, we're going to go to people's offices, but we had like 15 faculty, and it was going to become a logistical nightmare to try to do that. So instead, we invited them to the library, and we said, we will take a picture of you getting your swag bag. And then we used those pictures on social media, and I think that part of this project is totally doable. So each day of Open Education Week, we featured a different faculty member, and as you can see, we were already using our thank you boards, but we kind of, we outlined how much they're saving students, and we had a nice picture. And you can see for one of the days, SGA students were meeting with me, and so we were able to get a picture with them as well, which is really great because they were meeting with me about open education related stuff. So this was a really nice way to feature these faculty, say thank you, but also signal to others that this is something that we value. And those Open Education Week logos and stuff, those are all actually from Open Education Week, the program itself. They provide all that stuff for free, so we were able to use that. And then there were a few other quick projects I thought I would mention that were not technically really part of our gratitude campaign, but were still useful to us. Last August or so, we put together a video about our Affordable Learning Initiative, and it did not feature students. I think it's common to see videos that are, students saying, well, this is how much my textbooks cost, and here's the burden, and here's why it means so much to me. We chose to feature faculty, actually, faculty who were doing these sorts of projects, highlighting them and letting them have their movie star moment and kind of using that as a thank you to them. But also using them as kind of a model of what could be done for other faculty. So you are welcome to view the video if you'd like later. It's only like 6 minutes, but I will tell you, it took many hours to put together. It's a lot of work to make a video. We wanted to have like some marketing material with these kind of faculty champions front and center. But we quickly found that a lot of these faculty did not have a nice high resolution photo of themselves. So we have an amateur photographer on our campus, on our OER committee, who volunteered to take photos of our faculty champions with the textbooks that they were using printed out. And then there were some without the textbooks, and they could use any of those photos themselves personally, which I think some of them really needed some nice professional photos. But we also were able to use the photos for whatever we wanted to use them for, which is really helpful to be able to have actual people on our campus, standing proud and being models for our other faculty. So it's really hard to know what the results of all this really was. We can't really isolate things that happened and say that happened because of our gratitude campaign, but we can say that we reached at least 58 faculty directly, which normally we were kind of trying to reach people by trying to entice them to come to our workshops and things like that. Here we were directly pinpointing faculty and doing some direct outreach. And as I said, we reached 26 departments. We also got positive feedback, especially about the goodie bags. I mean, it's not like they cost $1 zillion. They were really not that expensive stuff in there. But just getting a free gift is like, people really like that. So these are some of the comments from that. Thank you so much. Who would refuse a gift under these lovely circumstances? That's very nice of you all. Thanks so much for the goodie bag. I think faculty should also be thanking you and your team for the great support and encouragement throughout the process. And that's so nice for you all to do that. So really positive messages. And then the main thing we wanted was to see an increase in involvement in like the more formal parts of our programs, our grant applications, and the upcoming summer symposium, and especially from people who had not participated before. And we were a little bit bummed because in the fall, we can usually award at least 5 grants, but we only had 3 applicants, which was really kind of sad. And we only gave it to 2 people because one person was a repeat from in the past. So we really needed to like inject some life into our program. And we totally, it coincided with our gratitude campaign, but also coincided with COVID-19. So that might be part of it. But our applications went up to 12 applications for our spring grants, which was a lot. That was way more than we had ever received in one semester. so that was awesome, and we were able to secure a little bit more funding to fund some more people. And then for our summer symposium, we can have 20 participants. And even the provost was like, well, what are you going to do if you don't get 20 participants? And we were like, we'll work with it. But we have 34 applicants already for this program. So we're going to actually have to choose from among those folks. So in my book, certainly hasn't harmed anything, but I think it was really successful to have all this positive messaging and to really kind of drive home that our campus cares about this, and this is an important thing that faculty are doing for students, and that we're going to support you if you choose to explore it yourself. So some lessons learned. Maybe before I go on, I'm going to check the chat and see if there are any questions. I think I'm going to have to stop sharing briefly. My computer can't handle all this stuff. Oh, well, thank you, Dawn. Yes, it is a nice campus. Does anyone have any questions before I talk about lessons learned? I'll keep going. I hope everyone isn't asleep. Okay. All right, so I'll just keep going. You can be thinking of questions for at the end. But what did we learn from all of this? We had some challenges that we worked through. A lot of these things cost nothing or almost nothing, but I will admit they do require time, um, your time, more so than faculty members' time. So that may be something that's in short supply right now. And I would definitely recommend maybe looking at like one of these approaches. We went a little overboard by doing like 5 things at once. But yeah, I think, the door hanger idea, or doing something on social media, just looking at one thing and seeing if it increases engagement would be good. We also had some disagreements about the approach. People were worried if we put something on faculty members' doors, is that going to annoy them more than it makes them happy? And there was like a contingent who really wanted to tape something to their door, and then others said, no, let's just do a door hanger. So sometimes when you have group efforts, this happens. You have some disagreement about the best approach. We also, of course, have some trouble reaching faculty, and we had to reconfigure how we gave our goodie bags so that it was more convenient for them. And I think going along with pandemic challenges, I think even more than normal, it's going to be difficult to reach faculty. Some of the faculty we gave a goodie bag to, I had never met in person. They would not respond to any of my emails. But when I showed up at their office door with a goodie bag, they were super nice and really communicative and thrilled. So it's going to be difficult because I can't do that necessarily in the fall. So how do we reach these folks? I think it's going to take some creativity, and I think it's going to potentially, we're going to have to rely on some word of mouth and things like that to overcome that challenge. So if you wanted to do something like this, I would start by maintaining a list of faculty who are making efforts to save students money. So it's surprisingly difficult to know what faculty are doing and what decisions they're making about their content that they assign. So as you hear about things through the grapevine, keep track of it. It's valuable information, and start building that list. And you can have your other librarian colleagues, library staff, contribute to that list. I know our circulation desk, they know all about the professors whose textbooks are really expensive, and they're constantly fielding questions from students who are really stressed out because they can't afford it. So, but they also know about the faculty who have made it really easy for students, and they can contribute to your list. So that kind of goes along with my second piece of advice, to get help from a lot of stakeholders. This is a good sort of project to do with students because it's so positive. So I think a lot of times student campaigns slip into kind of this is a burden for me, and that can be very effective because it really is a burden for them. But I think this is also an opportunity for them to demonstrate how a really positive relationship with their professor might look, and entice faculty to want to explore that. Also consider how you could scale up a project like this without adding a lot of time and effort. So this is the kind of thing, if you can not put dates on things, keep things generic, order extra of things, that can help reduce costs later. Be creative and flexible. I think this is going to be especially important going forward. Are there skills or services that you can provide that are thank you, that you wouldn't normally think of? So, like, for example, those photos we took of the faculty turned out to be really valuable to them, but it wasn't something we would have thought of offering to them before. I can see people are chatting. Oh, good. I'll do this last point and then I'll look at these questions. And then, of course, the most important thing is to follow up with these faculty, especially ones who you kind of added to your affordability advocates list. And so they don't know they're part of your campaign, but you've kind of assigned them as part of your campaign. So once you reach out to them and say thank you, the next step is going to have to be making an ask, saying, hey, do you want to attend one of our workshops? Would you like to apply for a grant? Would you like to just like have a quick Zoom meeting and talk about, what's going on in your department and what challenges your colleagues might be facing, that sort of thing. So don't let the momentum die. Um, see if you can keep things moving forward. I have some questions here. Kelly is asking, do we have basic resources for explaining OER? It's a new concept to faculty and even some of us. Yes, absolutely. So Kelly, if you don't mind, you can private message me if you want, just your email. I'm happy to send you. So for our summer symposium, we basically had to develop a curriculum, really short curriculum for faculty about what open education is. And we used a lot of examples to help us. So I'm happy to send that list to you, and also our own content. Because yeah, there's a lot out there. Yeah. Debbie, do you include bookstore among your stakeholders? Faculty Teaching Excellence Center, yes. Yes, we are lucky. Our bookstore is pretty cooperative. We have Follett as our bookstore company, and the staff member who works with them, she's employed by CSU, but she works with them, is on our OER committee. And really, I mean, sometimes she kind of reminds us that there are other avenues, like she's exploring inclusive access and things like that, but she's a really great advocate for us and actively involved. And then we have a Center for Faculty Excellence, and they are also really actively involved. The director of that is also on our OER committee, and they've partnered with us. They offer workshops all the time with free lunch, and so our open textbook workshops are part of that program. So we get to offer free lunch as part of that. I don't know how we're going to do that in the future, but yes, absolutely. If they're not actively involved in your program, a gratitude campaign might be a great opportunity to reach out to them, either asking them to partner with you or even, thanking them for whatever they're doing to contribute. Absolutely. So I hope that answered your questions. And I'm going to not forget to email Kelly. All right. My last page here is just some post-pandemic ideas. So as you can imagine, a lot of these ideas kind of got blown up when everything moved online, and they're not possible in the exact same way that we did them in like February and early March. But that doesn't mean that we can't do them. So one idea for kind of featuring your faculty champions is to create little profile pages for them. So I linked there at the Open Textbook Network's Summit and Institute a few weeks ago. There was a really great session by Josh Bullock and his colleagues at KU about how they feature textbook heroes, and they create little profile pages for each one. It's got an image of them. It's got how much money they're saving students. It's got like one or two short quotes. So that's a really great, that's a website that they can link to on their CV or on their own personal website. And it's also something you can send faculty to and say, oh, you're interested in open textbooks. Check out what your colleague had to say about the process. So we are totally copying them. We're working on it right now, creating these sort of online ways of profiling and spotlighting these faculty champions. As far as like a replacement for a student thank you card, I thought something like a thank you video, short student thank you videos could be cool. So we're looking into that. Students they have phones, they can record themselves saying thank you and send it in, and that can be useful to you. Another way to get them involved would be to see if you can collect their stories. And then I'm a really big fan of showing them. So if they have a nice photo of themselves, and putting that online, your little student stories, student blurbs about how an open textbook helped them, keeping it positive. Obviously, social media is important. I think it's going to become even more important going forward as a way of reaching out. So during Open Access Week, which is in the fall, and Open Education Week, which is in the spring, that's a great time to highlight what's going on, or even just, if you're really getting started, can you find some data about the positive impacts of open education and just do a blurb each day. Hey, did you know this? Did you know this? Like fun facts or something like that. I am a big fan of doing like a coffee meeting. If it not as a thank you, but more as like, can I hear more about what's going on with you? Saying, hey, here is like a $5 gift card to our local coffee shop. Let's sit down sometime and just on me, let's have coffee and talk about what's going on in your class or in your department. And absolutely, you could do that virtually as well. You could say, here's an gift card. Let's meet over Zoom. You can sip your coffee that you got yourself, and we'll talk about what's going on in your class. And absolutely, you could use it as a thank you as well. You could say, hey, I love what you're doing in your class. Can we sit down and, get some quotes from that person that you could then use to share with other faculty. I've noticed on my campus that some events that happen every year have now started to move online, the ones that weren't canceled. And so keep your eyes open for these. These could be a great opportunity to get involved. We have, like if you have an orientation, it may be more possible for you to do a quick pre-recording about what's going on in your program and shoot an email to the person involved with orientation. And then we have like a provost teaching summit every year that was moved online, and we were able to do a really cool poster that kind of described our whole program and used all kinds of visuals that we had just spent so much time creating. So if that sort of thing starts cropping up, absolutely see if you can get involved. And then my last piece of advice is to consider current faculty needs. So I think there's some faculty who are like, please don't burden me with another initiative. Like, I am barely keeping my head above water. I'm trying to transfer my course online. Please don't bother me. And I think there are other faculty who are like, I just went through a very unpleasant experience where my students had enormous difficulty accessing the course content, and it really disrupted everything. And I am ready to do whatever it takes to avoid that happening again. Can you help me switch to some other content that is more accessible for students? And of course, you have a whole range in between. So if you can get kind of a finger on the pulse of what's going on with your faculty, and are they open to this idea? What is it that they need? How can your initiative fill a specific need that they have? Which is easier said than done, but so that's all I had, but I think there was at least one other question, and I did want to share my slides, and I will put this link in the chat. I can here. Sorry, my computer is very slow. And this materials folder has a few of the things that I mentioned, so so that you can use them yourself if you'd like. Oh, thank you so much. We have an OpenCon Cleveland attendee. Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful. I don't know. Does anyone else have any thoughts? I mean, hopefully this is useful even for folks who are just beginning. It's hard to be thankful when nobody's doing anything yet, but hopefully this will come in handy at some point for you. Oh, thanks, Pam. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Anybody else who is interested in that list of basic OER stuff, just make sure when you message me that you send your email address. Yeah. Thanks, Heather. Heather is our photographer who did such a wonderful job. Okay, very good. Well, thanks everybody for attending, and I hope this was useful. Yeah, and I'll put my email in the chat here so that you can reach out to me if you have any questions or if you want to collaborate on anything. I know it's kind of a little more difficult to have spontaneous collaborations when we're not running into each other in conferences and that sort of thing. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you all for attending.